Hello and welcome back to Genesis Designs of Modelcraft, and welcome back to Chatterbox. And today's Chatterbox comes to you courtesy of Airfix yet again, I hear you say. Well, on this occasion it's kind of going to sprout off in a slightly, probably end up being quite a random video to be fair, but anyway, I went onto the Airfix shop, ordered direct from the site, which I do occasionally do. I wouldn't say it's regular. But I do occasionally buy stuff from there, and then I went on there to get this, actually, the brand new Wessex, yet more staggeringly gorgeous box art from Airfix, but while I was there, they're running a special offer at the moment, which I wanted to take advantage of. This is why I was ordering through the website, and actually that didn't quite work out for me, but more on that once I get it resolved one or the other. But anyway, I bought this, the Airfix RAF Rescue Launch. I think the newest of the vintage classics releases, and I am a fan of the idea, actually, of this vintage classics re-release program, and I'm equally a fan of the fact that they are making an effort to make it obvious this is not a new tool. It actually says on the side, if one looks, released in 1978 originally. And the reason I bought this, well, it's pure nostalgia, isn't it? And this is what I want to talk about today. My initial idea was to do a Chatterbox review of this kit, because I thought no one's going to want to watch a standalone video of a review of a kit that was released in the late 70s. Shrug. But then I kind of fleshed out the idea in my mind, and I feel like I'm not going to have time to review this because I want to talk about nostalgia in modelling generally. I have been burned, frankly, by the vintage classics thing. I bought a year or whenever it was released, the Domini. I did not, if I recall correctly, I don't think I built the Domini as a kid. I may have, but it's a nice looking jet, and it was re-released, and I bought one. I'm all excited, and I started building it, and it was terrible, absolutely awful, just horribly inaccurate, didn't really fit. And long story short, that kit ended up in the bin, and that was £10-12 just thrown away. So nostalgia yet caution. Anyway, yeah, I bought this one. Why? Because I built this when I was a youngster, a young teenager roughly, I would say, and the type has just held me captivated ever since. And I can identify themes in my modelling which literally run back to box art from kits that I saw as a child, and I've been thinking about it over the last day or so, and it's really, really interesting stuff to me. So, got myself a coffee, and I've brought out a vintage biscuit to jolly along the proceedings. It's not actually a vintage biscuit, it's a modern re-release, obviously. I don't have any shortcake in stock, so I've got a penguin. What's the joke? Let's have a look. Why are penguins' shops so busy? Drum roll, please. Because the fish fill it. Good grief. The jokes don't get any better. But anyway, yeah, I have a vintage biscuit and a nice cup of coffee, which will stay warm for hours. As I sit here on an extremely dull and wintry afternoon in the UK, thunderstorms are forecast. It's very grey outside, it's raining, it's windy, so you might hear a bit of weather throughout this video. But forgive me, it's the UK and it's September. So I got to thinking, how many of us are driven by nostalgia in modelling? And I'm willing to bet it's mostly all of us. How many of us buy old kits because we either built them as kids or wanted to build them as kids but never got the chance because the pocket money didn't stretch? Two quite different facets of the same diamond. I currently have a stash with circa 4 Bronco kits in it, and I can trace that stash back. The entirety of that stash is down to the Airfix OV10D with the multiple grey spotty camo of the era with the photograph on the plans box art, and I actually have a shrink wrapped edition of that kit in my collection. It is unfortunately already boxed away, ready to go, which I have absolutely no intention of building. So how many of us do have a sort of mini side stash, if you like, of kits that we have zero intention of building? I do, and I'm going to show you a few of them today, a few of them now, right now, and just generally waffle about it as I go along. So the first one, and the oldest one I'm going to show you, as old as I am, and I'm not terrifically young, I did not build this as a child, nor did I aspire to one of these as a child. I am not this old. I managed to get this a few years back because I've always been fascinated by the whole idea of these very, very early construction kits, or constructional kit if you prefer. This is more than a toy for man and boy, and the price is 10 slashes and a dash, tax free. Older folk might like to clue me in. Is that 10 pence? 10 shillings? I don't actually know. Note on the label, it says temporary wartime packaging, and a little note there that says, owing to present conditions, that's not my stomach, that is the thunderstorm, we reserve the right to alter the contents without notice. So this is Air Rider. This is a company that were around in the UK between, according to Scalemates, 1940 and 1947, and this was clearly from the 1940 to 1945 period. And this is what you get inside. Yeah, some wood. It's roughly sawn. You can see the pencil lines around the edges on some of the parts where they've been cut to by the workers. And here's the fuselage moulding. There you go. Always been fascinated by this. I was aware as a child that modelling used to be done like this, but I'd never seen a kit, and here it is. It's so fascinating to me, and I may well one day actually make this. I certainly believe I possess the ability to make a reasonable fist of it. In the bottom there is some flat acetate sheet. There are some stamped out corgi style propellers, stamped out of metal. Here some engines, a couple of rudimentary decals, which I believe did actually come with this, although maybe not, I don't really know. Packer slip, packer number 19. This slip must be returned with any complaints regarding contents or packing of this kit. That's to allow the proper blame to be made. There's a vac form turret, some round windows, a bit of a flat piece of wood that's printed both sides, but it doesn't match. I mean, yeah, it's basic stuff, but it's just fascinating, isn't it? This is how it started, just bits of wood, and you get with this quite wonderful sheet of plans, which is absolutely massive, but it's got a catalogue around the edge. Reminds me a bit of Gwillo's kits. All these different ones with some written instructions. The body has already been cut to side view as shown in figure 1 by the black dotted line, and will only require filing and sanding to get the correct shape. And then on the back of this sheet is a 3 view, quite basic, and it has some scrap views of the float and the sails, and it has got a rudimentary set of profiles to work from. You can cut those out and use them to help you with the fuselage shaping, so they correspond to these stations. I'd be quite keen to see if I couldn't find another one of these with something a bit smaller or less complicated than a Sunderland, because it would be quite fun to sit in the woods on a day like today on a little stool whittling away at something like this. So yeah, I've got this purely for interest's sake, but isn't it cool? The next one I'm going to show you is the next oldest kit in my collection of things I have no intention of building. This was given to me by a friend quite a lot of years ago now. A friend who knew that I was a fan of flying boats gave me this because it's a flying boat. It's the Savoia Marchetti S55, I think these are called. And these are quite famous. I think they did a transatlantic crossing or something like that at some point. And this is a kit by Ringo Toy Corp. Never heard of them before or since. And the parts in here are more like something we're used to seeing. Old-fashioned plastic moulding. Very basic, not really much less basic than the wooden kit I just showed you, to be honest. Complete with the markings moulded on. Instructions here take the form of a small booklet with the lovely olden days typeface. Very basic illustrations and a lot of words, much like a lot of kits were when I was growing up. That's a plan view. What I really like about this is it comes with a letter. Two letters. A actual handwritten letter from Mr. Henry Dallinger from Ontario in Canada, dated June 22nd, 1966. Dear Sirs, it's addressed to the Ringo Toy Corporation in Jamaica, New York. Dear Sirs, I recently purchased a Savoia Marchetti S55X seaplane kit and regret to advise that the decal sheet was not enclosed in the box. The kit was purchased from Lil's Hobby Shop in Fort William, Ontario, who suggested I write to you to obtain the shortage in the kit. The box was unopened at the time of sale. I would appreciate it if you would forward the required decal sheet to me at your convenience. I am enclosing 10 cents to cover cost of postage. I thank you for your kind attention to this matter. Hand signed, Henry Dallinger. And here is the response from Ringo Toy Corp. Dear Henry, the kit model you bought should not have had the missing parts printed on the carton or instruction sheet. This is an error in the printing. We're a new company trying very hard to please our customers, and we are sorry for the misprint. Under separate cover, we're sending you a few of our kit models for the inconvenience we have caused. Again hand signed by what looks like Block or Black of Ringo Toy Corp. How nice is that? Just a little piece of, and only 5 days later. Just a little piece of history. No intention of building it, displaying it or anything else, but it's interesting, isn't it? Now, I think here in the UK we all grew up with slightly different experiences of model shops, depending where we were in the country or what shops we had access to. Woolworths was a big one as a kid, where you go to the Woolworths department store to get model kits. I think they mostly sold Airfix. And for me, in my hometown, most kits were, or my model shop actually that I had, my main model shop sold Airfix kits and Heller kits, mostly, of the home team. And here are a few. These I recently picked these up. These are immaculate. They've got a bit of sellotape and some old price stickers on them, but they're basically in pretty much mint condition. They're sealed inside. They smell like old Airfix kits. There's a strange, slightly sweet smell that they always had, and it's all there. Sealed bags. I've built both of these kits before, multiple times actually. And this is how they looked when I used to go. When I was younger, this was the box art era. This is why I've bought them, because it reminds me. Airfix box. This is a really small box for a 1/48th kit, isn't it? Just reminds me of back then when I was a kid. This one was £1.85 and this one was £2.50 from Lewis Saver Store, I think that says. Series 4 Airfix model kits. I also used to see a lot of stuff like this, and I bought this fairly recently. This is one of the old, it says 135th, I always thought these were 132nd actually. Chevrolet Field Artillery Tractor. Always been quite fascinated by this truck. And this one is nowhere near immaculate. Lots of bits off and it's lots of bits free, but if you look at it, it's genuinely still, you may disagree. If you want a focus camera, that would be good. Not entirely sure if the camera's focused, but there's some of the figures you get with it. But these are still, I think, pretty viable kits, even by today's standards. There's a lot of parts here. There's quite a lot of detail, and it's really not bad. Genuinely not a bad kit. Airfix Products Limited, 1978, made in England. See on there. This is earmarked in the to-go pile because I don't really need it, but it isn't an advert incidentally. But yeah, I have been guilty of buying things like this because it reminds me of back in the day when I was a kid. And then you come to things like these. Probably some of the best box art on any kit ever, bar none. The Hasegawa Jaguar. This is also in the to-go pile. I built this as a kid in this scheme, and that's why I bought this kit again. Literally because of that fantastic box art and the fond memories I had of it as a kid. And on the other side of the H shelf were the Heller kits, and again these still bring a twitch of nostalgia when I see these in shops or at shows. And some of them command quite reasonable money now, but a lot of these old Heller kits as well are actually still pretty viable and decent kits even to this day. I built multiples of these as a kid. I remember I poked holes in it with a hot needle and pronounced it shot down, as you do. On top of those, I have an Esky 1/48 Mirage 3 in one of my boxes. I have the Bronco that I mentioned, the Airfix line drawing plan type box art, which as I was growing a little older, that was the sort of current box type. I have a Tamiya 1/48 Lancaster, which not only is it of that time, I bought it at that time. I bought that kit. Well, it was bought for me for my 16th birthday, and I still own it today, and I have zero intention of building it at all. I, for a long time, kept it thinking I'm not going to build it because I can't do it justice. And I'm sure many of you will understand those thoughts. And I now know that I can do it justice, but I also know that I prefer to see it as it is now in its box. for the feelings that represents to me than I would as a finished model. I did build one as a younger child than 16, and it was an expensive kit back then. It seems relatively quite cheap nowadays compared to how it was back then. I have a couple of old Airfix 1/24 super kits, a Spitfire and a Focke-Wulf 190, and I have a Hales era Hasegawa Spitfire 1, a 1/72 one in the silver plastic, again purely a nostalgia purchase, no intent to build it whatsoever. I see I'm at 20 minutes here, so I think we'll have a quick look through this kit. As I say, this box art was probably a lot of what inspired me, but also as a child back then, the sort of the reading material, think of things like Biggles books and Warlord and Commando comic books and the little comic book pamphlet things you used to get. This kind of thing, you know, speeding through the ocean with the enemy being shot, and this is how it was back then. And I think this box art was probably a major contributing factor to me buying this kit in the first place. I did build it and I did finish it, and for many years the completed model sat in my grandfather's house. So there have been numerous times in the intervening period, and since I took up modelling as a major pastime again sort of 20 odd years ago now, that I've seen this and nearly bought it and never did. So I thought, this time I'm going to go for it, I'm going to get it. And when you do get in there, it's packaged just as they were back then, just in one bag. I think I'll leave it sealed for now because there are a couple of loose parts in there. And it's quite simple. 2 halves of a hull, a deck, bit of detail, a few chaps. This guy with the rope, back then I painted him to represent my grandfather because my grandfather was in the Navy during the war. Clearly this is an RAF launch, that's irrelevant, but you know, kids. Who are we to let truth or reality intrude on a good story or a daydream? Nowadays though, we get modern decals. This is the one thing with buying these old kits, the decals do tend to be, they were barely usable in the first place, honestly, were they? But now they're not too clever. So we've got a brand new decal sheet there. We've got full colour version artwork, which is nice. A printed flag as an alternative to a decal. 2 versions, one with a yellow deck and one with a grey deck. And of course the instructions, and these are reprints of the originals with all the modern blah attached, but the original type of instructions. And I'm sitting here smiling like an idiot. And honestly, whether I build this or not, I'm pleased I got it. On the other side of the coin, although it's a relatively untroubled one for me these days, is how many of you purchase kits now that you really wanted to build as a child but never got the chance to back then? The big one for me, well, there are 2 actually for me still. Although I think I've reached a point in life where it's an itch I don't necessarily need to tickle, if that's an appropriate way to put it. The Bentley, the big Airfix blower Bentley is one of them. Every time I see that I think, oh, really wanted that when I was a youngster. Just again, box art, fabulous car. Even when I see real ones, all I'm thinking about is that Airfix kit. And the other is the Airfix Stuka, the 1/24 Stuka. I never have had that kit, never seen it actually. And I've so nearly bought that several times in the last months. It's the last year or 2, because it came out, didn't it, as a vintage classic fairly recently. But yeah, it's interesting to me how my thinking about it now, retrospectively or reflectively, how much of my thrust in this hobby has been preordained by box arts like this, and the kits that I saw and built and interacted with via magazines or whatever back in my formative years, and to realise that that still influences me to this day, that my innate interest in the Bronco is entirely because of that old Airfix kit back in the day. And some of my favourite artwork remains box artwork. The original Airfix Superkit Spitfire and Harrier artworks are, I think, just magical, and I would be happy to have good quality prints of those on my walls. Chuck a comment down below if you have any input on it. It's an interesting one. I will of course bring a full, frank and proper review of this Wessex kit in due course. I haven't opened the bags yet, I'll do that when I do the review, but from the very quick look I've had through the plastic bags, it looks like it's going to be actually spectacular, so look out for that in the coming weeks. But thank you very much for watching. Thank you for indulging me on this little romp down rose tinted memory lane. Massive thanks to my new channel members. I have finally figured out how to find out who you are, so I actually know who they are now, and to those of you that continue to support me on Buy Me a Coffee. And I think I'll leave this chatterbox there, so for now, cheers, thank you very much for watching, and with all of that said, I think it only remains for me to say, till next time, look after yourselves, look after each other, and Genesis out.